All right. So we're talking about how to build an authentic personal brand on LinkedIn. This is a masterclass that I've made especially for recruiters. I presented this at the ATC this year, and it had such an amazing response that I was absolutely honored to be asked back by the team at the ATC to jump on and run the video masterclass version of this. So for those of you that weren't able to make it to the conference, well, you missed out, but you didn't because you're here today, which is awesome. I'm a recruiter myself, so I was in recruitment for about 10 plus years. I did a very, very short stint in agency land, and then I actually also, after that time, I moved into an internal role. I worked with many of Australia's most recognisable brands, mostly in insurance. I fell into insurance, health insurance, insurance broking as well, and then more into general insurance. But in saying that, throughout my time and my decade in recruitment, I had my fingers in every single pot when it came to projects and managing teams and doing volume recruitment and grad recruitment. So I had a lot of fun doing that. And now I run my own business, and I love doing presentations like this, especially around personal branding on LinkedIn. So this is a little bit about me. When you're asked to introduce yourself, how many of us go, what do we say? What do we say? And often I resort to what I do for work, or what I used to resort to was what I do for work. So hi, I'm Ruby. I'm a recruiter turned online entrepreneur. I now run my own online business. I coach people now, and I have such a love for people that has never ever finished. It's never ended. I've always had this innately in me. But how many of us get this feeling as though when someone asks you a little bit more about who you are and how you want to represent your own personal brand, how many of us think like this? Just a big splatter of information, almost information overload, and all the things that you're trying to work out. Do people want to know that about me? Or is that just too much information? Or I definitely won't say that. And this is a really nice capture of everything that I would love to tell people, but I know in my head, I'm like, no, filter it out, filter it out, filter it out, right? So it's things like, I'm an extrovert. I am such a hippie. I love places like Byron Bay, and I love my meditation. I'm an absolute optimist in what I do. I'm a coffee addict. I've got a coffee right here. I've got 2 kids. I love red wine. The list can go on and on and on. And this often floods into the confusion around how do you represent yourself on a place such as LinkedIn, or even in-person networking, and you're trying to assimilate what is the best way to represent your personal brand. Do you know, one of the things that a lot of people will say about me and after they've met me is not any of the words that was just on that previous slide. What they will tend to say about me is, wow, your energy is amazing. And this actually brings it back to my first point, that it's not necessarily about what you think you're about or how you talk about yourself, but your personal brand is how you make others feel. How do you leave the room, or how are you coming into the room, and what is your contribution to the room? Now, the room can be an online room like this one, or the room can be in a physical room when I presented at the ATC. But regardless of that, hopefully the energy is coming through, little Zoom camera, the energy in the room was really, really massive, and it was great to see such a great response. How do you make people feel? Or how do you want to make your candidates feel? Now, I picked this picture. I was actually running an in-person event, and I picked this picture of me hugging this beautiful girl. Her name's Lawrence. And what it represents to me is, I remember when I used to make offers to candidates, and they accepted the offer, they signed their agreement. It was just such a wonderful way to actually be like, congratulations, you've jumped through all of these hoops and you finally made it and you've got the job. And many a time I would definitely reach out if they were in the same room and just give them a massive hug to be like, welcome to the team. Being an internal recruiter, it felt like I was welcoming someone to the fold, right? To the culture that we had. And so often I still feel this way towards my clients And I definitely feel this way towards the people that are in my inner circle and in my group of clients per se. Now, I obviously won't be jumping in and hugging every single person that comes into the interview room, but it's certainly that sense of warmth and that sense of acceptance and that sense of making candidates feel safe when they want to ask me a question online, or when they walk into an interview room with me, that they feel safe to open up, or when they jump on a call with me, or a call online just like this one, that it feels safe for them to do that. And at the end of it, we're able to give each other a big hug and have a massive smile on your face, right? So how do you want your candidates to feel when they come across you and your personal brand? Definitely write down that first emotion that comes to mind and that first thought that crosses your mind whenever you think about your personal brand. So my very next question is, when did you last think about your values? So often, if we're representing an employer brand, many of you here are working for some awesome companies and organizations. We're so attuned as recruiters to pick up on company values. We're so used to talking and embodying the values of our organizations that often we don't even think about our own personal values. Or we don't think about what is it in particular that we represent as a human at a business that also emulates company culture. I'd love for you to have a think about what certain words are coming to mind right now outside of what is just, I suppose, within the company value structure. Even if, let's say, yes, like one or two of the words do resonate with you, what are some of your own personal values? I wanted to share some of mine and talk to you about how I work this into my everyday life. Certainly now as a recruiter, being, still managing a business, but also helping startups recruit for their own companies. So these are my top 5 values that it took a while for me to actually really feel connected to the words that are on this page. And this is the thing about values. Sometimes they change. Sometimes they stay the same for years and years and years. And I find with different life stages, different values come into play. So these are my top 5: freedom, family, fun, tribe, and creativity. I need to feel a sense of freedom in what I do every single day, a sense of being able to make choices that feel aligned to the person that I am, so that I'm giving the best part of me to whoever is in the room, whether it's those of you that are on this online chat right now, or in this online video masterclass, or maybe you're even watching the replay. But that sense of freedom to create and talk to you about personal branding and things that I love. Family revolves around everything that I do. So earlier this year, I decided to leave my 9-to-5 job and go all in with my own business because I wanted to spend more time with my family. Everything I do has to be fun. So this is incredibly fun to be jumping online. I think it's one of the first online masterclasses that ATC's done. So it's really fun for me to have a play around with this and to be able to put this out there to you guys and the recruitment and talent acquisition community. You guys are like my peeps, and I just love being able to show up like this. Tribe and definitely I would say like a community of people that I can connect into, and just being creative, even doing slide decks like this and being able to talk to you and structure a course like this is so much fun, and it's creative. So what are the top 5 values that come to mind for you? If you can't think of any words, a really great way is to just start Googling like some keywords or Google some value words and pick the ones that really jump out at you first, and then dive into the meaning of it and put your own interpretation on it, because this will help you represent your own personal brand, also as you complement your employer brand as well. Your values play into your everyday personal interaction with your candidates and your hiring managers. Everything you do and say will come out in terms of how you make those people feel when they're interacting with you over email, over the videos that you're making on LinkedIn, the interactions that you're making, the connections that you're making online. So when was the last time you checked in with someone, especially with how they perceive you? When I asked this at the conference in person, I definitely saw a lot of this, a lot of squirming seats, a lot of people that were like, oh, it's definitely been some time since I've asked some people. And I think this is very much the case because we're so busy. We've got a lot going on in our lives. If you've got a calendar booked with lunch and back-to-back meetings, when do you have the time to actually turn to the peer next to you and say, how do you perceive me? Or when was the last time that you asked your hiring manager, when you've completed a requisition or when you've hired someone and filled the role, when did you ask them last? How did you find your interaction with me? How did you find the process? What can I do better? So often the self-awareness aspect to personal branding is often the most grounding and the most powerful way to know where your start line is. Because if you're unsure how others perceive you, how do you know what you'd like to change? Or how would you know what you'd like to enhance? How would you know what you'd like to show off a little bit more, right? So take some time. We're heading into the holiday period. Things are kind of winding down. People are feeling generous of time. So pick a couple of people, 3 to 5 people that you can think of, much like a 360 review around how they perceive your personal brand. Fantastic place to start, whilst also weaving in all that stuff around values, right? The other way to think about your personal brand, and this is something that I think really resonates with me because in my early days of starting my personal branding journey, I was really into YouTube. I actually still love YouTube. And if you look at my YouTube feed, I think you'll be able to tell a thing or two about me. It's basically got like Gary Vaynerchuk, Tony Robbins, Marie Forleo. It's like entrepreneur, entrepreneur, entrepreneur. And I just love what they have to say. And I often go to their YouTube channels for certain reasons. And LinkedIn is becoming a lot like that as well. You'll notice different personalities showing up on LinkedIn on your feed every single day, and people will start to relate to certain topics to certain people. So for example, with me, I show up and I talk a lot about side hustles, but I also talk a lot about personal branding and how to actually unapologetically own your truth. And I know people come to my channel and they watch my content to feel that little bit more empowered in being unapologetic about who they are. So if your personal brand is the YouTube channel, then what would the topics be that people would tune in? What are the topics people would tune in for? Okay, a bit of a delay. All right, I've got Karen from the ATC team here who's like, hang on, stop. Is it okay now? Okay, cool. Yeah, this is the thing sometimes with online masterclasses and Zoom, just write it out, you guys. Like if there's a dip or a gap in the audio, then just, it'll catch up, it'll catch up. So, all right, so what are the topics people tune in for? What is it in particular that you would love to be known for? Another way to think about it is, yes, you are representing an employer brand, but at the same time, each one of you are also representing industries. You're representing certain candidates that you would like to attract into that industry. You are thinking about the right cultures and the right type of personalities that would suit an industry, right? So in saying that, how are you tuning into that channel with content that's going to magnetize those candidates to you? And they can be the hardest to fill candidates out there. It can be the toughest roles out there. I definitely struggled when I was in recruitment earlier this year, when I was still working full-time in March. I was desperate to find developers. I was recruiting in the tech space and I had to basically hire developers in a very, very niche part of the IT industry. And in fact, they were like Ruby developers and they had to know, Golang and all these really specific languages. So I started my LinkedIn personal branding journey and I was speaking to that specific developer that I had in mind that I was like desperate to attract into my business. And my channel started to be all about how to recruit in the tech startup industry back then. It was also about how awesome the company was that I was representing and what to me meant, I guess, what it meant to me to work for a culture that was so open and so transparent. We also had this really cool thing where I used to work, which was open salaries. The company still has it now. So I was able to talk about it on my LinkedIn channel and once again, really represent the business, but also interpret it in a way that I would be attracting and magnetizing candidates who found that so interesting and so vital to actually joining the business that I was representing. So hopefully this gives you a little bit more of an idea around the type of content you can put out there and actually start to marry up what your employer brand can give you versus how you put your own view and your own interpretation on things. Because once again, it makes you really, really approachable online. So if you're on LinkedIn, they're able to actually message you and say, I saw your video, really, really cool. How do I apply for the job? Or do you think my skill set would be suited to the position you have advertised? Your personal brand is also about how you can help others. I think a lot of the time you can get caught up that your personal brand is like a consumer brand. Look at me, look how amazing I am. And you know, you've got your lights shining around you and your beautiful bright colors and all of that. But when you really strip back to what personal branding is, it's really about why someone would want to come to you for help. Why someone would feel that they can connect with you at an authentic level in order to find that perfect job, in order to help fill that hard to fill role, in order to help expand the business and the vision and their goals, right? So how are you helping others? How will you serve your candidate market and your hiring managers? What are you doing right now in your role? If you cast back to this year, and it's been a great year, what has been the highlight for you when you've had those accolades come through, or you've had people say, you know what, you are so amazing at what you do, and thank you for doing what you do. Those moments that you get those accolades or those awards or those moments where people sit back and go, you are so awesome. That's almost a super strong indication of how you serve others and how you show up to your candidates and to your hiring managers as well. So give yourself some time to think about this question. I think it's really important to just spend a minute or two remembering and casting back to that time when you go, wow, I was really proud of myself for that. That felt really good. It felt really aligned. So if you've got a pen there and you've got a piece of paper, just write down some of those moments. I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to do that. I think it's going to be really important so that everyone takes that time to do that right now. I'm going to have a sip of water. I've just been told I'm on Facebook Live. Hi, Facebook. Oh my gosh. Oh, a little sneak peek. Hope you guys are enjoying it. But you don't get the full, you've got to sign up for the actual full webinar, right? Cool, cool. Are we doing all right with the audio? Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. Just reading through your chat, guys. Hi, everyone. Sophie, TA specialist at Oom Media. Oh my gosh, we were just there recently, BK and I. Hope you're all having a fab start to the week. Hi, Rachel. Welcome. Happy Monday. Tiffany and Co. Awesome. Oh, Rachel, I think I just connected with you on LinkedIn. Really cool. Hi, Anjali. Hi, Christina from Telstra Super. Awesome. Used to be in Super as well. Love my Super peeps. Who else have we got here? TA specialist from National Hearing Care. Welcome. So cool. Do you see how broad these industries are? It's really, really awesome. Oh, welcome everybody. It's so great to have you here. I've just jumped into the chat very quickly. Cool. So hopefully by now you would have written down those moments, right? It's such a nice time of year, or even if you're watching the replay later on, always remember to write down those little wins and the celebrations that you sometimes forget to have because you are so great at what you do. You give so much back to your businesses. Your candidates love you for what you do because you've helped them find amazing roles. And obviously, even with the candidates that maybe didn't quite make it through the entire process, what are they saying about you? Even after the fact you've had to reject them, or you've had to, you know, put their profile on hold until a suitable role comes up. Cool. Let me just flip slides. Cool. So this slide here is a representation of how I show up online and how I serve my candidates. So even when I started my own business, but even prior to that, when I was still recruiting, I would actually run these channels for my business that I was representing. We had obviously a LinkedIn company page, and I said to the CEO and the founder that I would love to take over the company page and post really cool little snippets and insider work on what the business is actually doing, so that it made my job so much easier when it came to recruiting. But at the same time, I used the LinkedIn company page to also raise my personal brand, because I was the head of recruitment and I was able to really talk about the recruiting process, what type of people we wanted to attract. People were able to put a face to the name, because obviously it's sometimes really hard these days to get in front of all your candidates. But I find that when you jump onto LinkedIn video, the actual reach of doing so is incredible. I'm going to show you some stats in just a second. We also had an Instagram account, which grew very slowly, but it had an incredible deep reach, right? So people would interact a lot in the DM. I used Instagram stories as a way to show the behind the scenes of the office, like what we were doing in terms of like team interaction and culture. So that again was a really great way for potential candidates to see what was going on in the background of the business as well. At the time, we were tossing up on whether to have a podcast as a company. And since that time, I've definitely had a lot of other businesses that I've gone to consult to say, yes, I would absolutely love to have a podcast. And so with the talent team, what would we talk about? And I know now in 2019, there's half a dozen teams that I've consulted to personally that are starting talent podcasting. And it's really about lifting up certain talent consultants in the business, talking about what's going on in their space, bringing hiring managers onto the podcast to talk about their area and what's happening in the industry, whether it be, you know, in superannuation, for example, or in technology. So I think this is a really great time to start thinking about podcasting from a personal branding point of view, but also to raise your view as a recruiter on the actual way to draw in the right candidates for your company, right? Very, very different way of thinking about it. And lastly, Facebook. I was actually just asked by BK and the ATC team, is Facebook Lives a thing? And I'm like, yes, it is. Go live on Facebook. So I recently consulted with one of the biggest talent teams here in Melbourne, and they are going to go big on a Facebook Live campaign, especially for volume and graduate recruitment. Obviously, a really great place to share what's going on with recruiting events as well. But again, if you're the face of your business from a recruitment perspective, it's a really, really great way to break down those barriers, show people authentically like who you are, because effectively people are always watching on wondering, should I be joining this company over that company? Now, if this company over here is so transparent about what's going on in the behind the scenes and what an office environment looks like or what a virtual environment looks like, then I feel more comfortable in approaching that company because I feel like I'm a part of that business. I think there's a real shift now in terms of personal branding for recruiters. We are almost like at the forefront of leading the social media campaigns around how to actually break down those walls, because it's so much more than just having a landing page with a careers like imagery, careers page on your website with stock photos, right? It's almost like that stuff's getting to be redundant. You need to actually show from a video perspective, from a voice perspective, what's actually happening behind the veil, what's going on behind the business. Now, depending on what teams you're in, if you've got PR, if you've got marketing, and they're having a heart attack to me saying this, then obviously make sure that you bring them on board, bring them into the journey. But I think what you'll find is that more and more companies are starting to know and realize the power of personal branding, especially through social media, and making that all come to life. So be sure to ask me any questions on that, because I usually get a ton of questions on that particular topic. So type it into the chat and let me know if you, if anything's coming up for you, if any resistance is happening, if there's anything that's like, oh my gosh, I could not do that. That would be so scary. I'd love to be able to work that through with you guys at the end of our workshop. So we've talked a lot about employer brands through this so far. And the reason why I want to do this is because as recruiters, we have an obligation to represent an employer brand. That's just what we do. But I guess the future of work now is really about how we connect to people within the employer brands itself. Like, I don't know if you guys are noticing, but like, it's so crazy. If you jump onto LinkedIn, you know, it's really cool to see like the Prime Minister of New Zealand, our Prime Minister, doing LinkedIn videos. Like, how crazy is that? It's like, what? And, you know, seeing the number of views that is on there is really, really awesome to see. I mean, that's obviously one example, but more and more CEOs are starting to stand up and do LinkedIn videos. It's less about the actual consumer brand behind, like, oh, do I want to work there? And it's more about the people within the consumer brand itself. So we have an obligation, right, as recruiters. Don't forget, people work with people. People don't necessarily work with brands anymore. Brand loyalty has a totally different frame of mind these days, right? Like, it's less about, oh, I will only ever buy this brand ever because it's what my parents and my grandparents had bought, right? It comes down to the people and the trust behind the brand name and the values that they uphold. So enhancing your own personal brand will in fact enhance your employer's brand. And it's crazy to me, right? Like, 3 years ago, I would never ever have been asked to come and present at a business about how to help individuals raise their personal brands on LinkedIn. Now, some of the biggest brands all around Australia are asking me to come on board and show their people how to use LinkedIn, how to get onto LinkedIn video more, how to post articles, how to interact better. And this to me is just such a strong indication that employer brands are starting to catch up to the fact that people want to connect with people. Candidates want to connect to recruiters, right? Hiring managers want to connect with candidates, but they also want to see in reverse, right? Let's see, if we want to hire, what do you look for? You look for a candidate's LinkedIn profile, what's going on their social media channels, what are they blogging about, have they been in trouble, all these things, right? So it's almost in reverse. Candidates are looking back on us around, okay, has the company been in trouble lately? What's been happening in the media and the news? Who's the CEO? Who's the leadership team? Who's my recruiter? Can I trust the recruiter? Will they have my back? So it's just in reverse. And it all kind of comes full circle when you really think about it, right? So here are some statistics for you guys, and this is updated from the 2018 workshop that I ran. And since that time, I think earlier this year, I said there was like 550 million users on LinkedIn. That's now gone up to 562 million users on LinkedIn globally. But here's the thing, only 3 million of those share content daily. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing to me because what that says to me and what it screams to me is opportunity. If you do at all follow Gary Vaynerchuk, and any of the amazing social media entrepreneurs out there, right? There's a concept out there around trading attention. And right now on Facebook and Instagram, and especially on Twitter, your voice is drowned by the messages you put out there unless you have a following into the millions. If you look at this statistic right here, you can almost be guaranteed that your video and your content is going to be shown in the LinkedIn algorithm if you are using video in particular. Video from a LinkedIn perspective gets such a big rap right now because LinkedIn want more video, they want more videos in their feed. More videos equal more interaction, equals more community, equals more people wanting to join the platform. So of course LinkedIn is going to be like, if you make a video, we're going to make sure it shows up, and we're going to make sure it shows up to your first degree and second degree connections. As recruiters, what an immense opportunity to have a stage and a platform to talk to your candidates and to talk to your industry about what you most care about and why you want to hire for the businesses that you want to hire for. I think this is also really interesting. There are 15 million active job listings that are current on LinkedIn daily. 15 million. And I know a lot of my recruiter buddies will say to me, oh, I don't even bother putting up a job out on LinkedIn anymore because it's just absolute rubbish and the candidates aren't quality and it just doesn't feel aligned. Well, maybe that's the case. And maybe your strategy is now less about posting job ads and posting job ads and posting job ads. And maybe it's about getting in front of the job ad to say, hi, my name's Ruby. I represent ABC Consultancy. And I just wanted to let you know a thing or two about the business that I so love and enjoy. And then you've got your hiring manager there with you, and they're talking about the role. You're showing them the behind the scenes. You're interviewing your hiring manager in the kitchen of that business that you're working in, and they can see what's going on in the background, right? They can hear how noisy it is and how crazy and vibrant it is. Or they hear, yeah, it's actually really like low key and it's really quiet in there. That's the sort of place I want to work with. So 40% of the 562 million are active users, which means that they are liking and commenting on videos, but not necessarily sharing their own content daily. So 40% of that amount, it's just insane, right? Of people that are consuming content. They're sitting behind the screen, they're scrolling through feeds, they're watching on as people are putting out amazing value add content out there. They're not actually creating their own. But once again, that attention, 40%, is not ever to be seen and heard again on places like Facebook and Instagram. It's still definitely a place to be seen and to be heard on LinkedIn. I don't work for LinkedIn either, you guys. I'm just saying. I've not been asked to say that at all, but the platform fascinates me because I've been on it for 10 plus years. I remember when LinkedIn first came out. Do you guys remember this? And everyone was like, oh my God, it's the end of recruiters. It's going to kill us all. But in fact, it's just been an amazing tool to enhance our personal brands, increase the way that we're actually shining a light on what we do. And now with video coming out in January this year, it's been able, a great platform and a tool for us to become even more authentic in what we do in our professional lives as well. So this is my transformation on LinkedIn ever since I came out in March this year and started making daily videos on LinkedIn. I often get told that my videos clog up people's feeds. I'm so sorry. Or I often get told, like, the first person I see on LinkedIn is you. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Once again, trading attention. But you'll see that in January, it was 3,000 followers. February, I moved to 6,000. In March, I moved to 7,500. And today I hit 20,000 followers, I think about 2 weeks ago. And it's just been absolutely incredible. Whilst I am not actively recruiting anymore per se, it obviously translates differently for me. I've grown my business this way, I've grown my brand this way, but that's not to say that it wouldn't be the same for you in growing your personal brand for your company. There are individuals out there who have done an amazing job at doing this, right? And individuals in agency land, as well as in internal recruitment, are starting to realize more and more that it is like the new school recruitment book. When I was in agency, one of my directors used to say to me, the only thing that's important when you're a recruiter is your little black book of contacts, because you can lock that up and take that away with you. And if you can, make sure it's watertight, your candidates will be loyal to you forever. Now, whilst that is a very cool, very old school way of thinking about it, your new school way of thinking about it is your little black book, is your LinkedIn connections, and also how you connect with them from a value add perspective and what you're doing out there every single day to give back to that community and to serve them. So this is, obviously going back to, yes, a ton of you on here will have 500 plus, 1,000 plus, maybe even 5,000 plus followers on your profile. If you just go in and have a click and have a look, I think you'll be shocked by how many people follow you. And yet, if you're not showing up daily, or if you're not even showing up weekly or monthly, those people are just sitting there hibernating, and they're dormant, and they're waiting for you to create content. But right now, it's like your YouTube channel, your TV show is like static. It's just white noise, like zzz, there's nothing there. And what an awesome way to be able to be like, hello, 400, 500, 1,000 people. If you've ever stood in front of a room of 400 people, that's a ton of people. So being able to actually talk to them to say, I work at this company now, this is what I do, this is how I recruit, is a fantastic way to be able to raise your brand. So this is something that often comes up. Actually at ATC, I had a lot of questions on this. How do you deal with the fear of showing up? Oh, I hate getting on video, I hate the way I look, or I just don't have the right lighting or the right equipment, or I don't think I've got anything value add to share. And what do you do with the trolls? Oh, the trolls. Oh, the keyboard warriors. And this is something that I feel is extremely important to talk about whenever we broach the subject of personal branding. And it's the fact that, for me, the mindset game around personal branding really needs to come from a place that is grounded to your values and obviously why you do what you do. When you understand those two things and you feel locked down with that, it doesn't matter what other people say about you, or whether you do get the haters throwing shade on you and they want to comment and bring you down, because you're always able to ground back to those two things. Yes, this is what I stand for. This is what I'm about. One of my values is about having fun, right? So one of the videos that I first put out there on LinkedIn was actually, I was singing Kelly Clarkson, actually, like I should say, miming Kelly Clarkson into a hairbrush on a Friday afternoon. And I was just having fun, literally just like a 15-second clip of me doing this. I chucked it up on LinkedIn just to say, happy Friday, everybody. Here's to being a little bit silly and calling out the fun in our weekends. Yes, I think I had about, 80,000 views on that. So many people were like, thank you so much for bringing so much joy to this platform. Lots of likes and lots of comments. But I also had a ton of people throw shade at me saying, get off LinkedIn, go to Facebook. Now you're just being stupid. No one wants to see that stuff, blah, 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 right? But I stood by what I put out there because I know that I brought a ton of smiles to a lot of people. And also, if you remember, one of my core values is fun. So I was able to be like, cool, if that triggers you, then feel free to unfollow me, because you'll be seeing a lot more of these videos on my channel, because I love life. And if I don't show that side of me, I'm not being truly authentic to my LinkedIn followers and those that want to feel that energy from me. So dealing with fear and doubt and haters, ground back into your values and who you are and how you want to represent yourself. So some tips to get you started. Start with your values. Tell your story. Often people are like, what's my first video? Well, how do I start? Tell your story. Hi, my name is Ruby, and I've been in recruitment for 10 years. Sit down and tell a story. Everybody loves a great story. In fact, grab your cup of coffees and sit there and watch people's stories. I love it. We all love it. We're recruiters. Who are we kidding? The first thing we want to ask our candidates is, tell me about yourself. And it's fascinating, right? So do the same. Be unapologetic about who you are and be consistent with personal branding, especially on LinkedIn. I see a lot of people who are like, they post for 1 week and then they post like 2 or 3 times and it just is like, yeah, this is awesome. And then they disappear. And it was like, what happened to that person, right? So consistency builds your following, it builds a tribe, it builds a community, and it shows people that you are reliable, that you're going to show up for them, that you're able to provide those tips. And number 5, move out of your own way. You're the only one holding yourself back. Maybe your PR team, you might want to check in with them before you do your LinkedIn videos. But really, like I said, I think more and more we're going to start seeing a lot more recruiters with their personal brand really show up on LinkedIn. So keep it real, you guys. You can tell when you're not authentic. I'm sure you guys have seen a ton of videos out there that are like, oh, that person just seemed really fake, or it looked like they were reading, or it just was not, it didn't come across the right way. Just ground to your values and be you. And secondly, have a call to action. Because if you're putting out content from a personal branding perspective, but you're not actually creating a call to action, so whether that's to connect with you or to click somewhere or to apply for this job or to share the content, then people aren't really going to do anything as a result of it except consume it. It's amazing when I say at the end of each video, be sure to click on the link in the description and check out blah, 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 how many clicks of that link I get versus not saying it at all, and people won't even see like that little LinkedIn link, right? So always try and think about a call to action outside of the video content that you are creating. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I wanted to give you guys a good 10 to 15 minutes to ask any questions. So I'm going to stop share on this one and jump back in to the chat room. I see so many questions, which is so awesome. I don't know why I sang that, but I did. Okay, cool. So let me just go back to the top. And as you guys are thinking about more questions, this is the opportunity to do that. I invite you guys to jump on camera with me if you would like. All you need to do is like basically click on the stop video sign in the bottom left bar of Zoom and you'll jump on camera. If you're too camera shy, then just type it into the chat box and we'll definitely get to you. So let me have a look. Question from Sophie. Hi, Sophie. Great webinar and thanks so much for your time. Thank you. I would love to get some ideas on how you gained the buy-in from businesses when it comes to influencing social media approach and post content on LinkedIn from the company page. Cool. So what I did was, and I think with you, Sophie, you're from O Media, right? So I think with you, you're pretty lucky because I think your size business is a really great place to start. Like if you were working for a massive corporate, there's probably going to be slightly more hoops to jump through. But what it comes down to is a bit of a conversation. And this is relative to any size businesses that you have, right? Is if you want to raise your personal brand and you're saying this to your leaders and to your managers and the influencers in the business, they're going to look at you like a sideways pug look, like what, you know, like head tilt. But what you want to do is actually give them a bit of a plan, write it out to say, if I'm able to raise my personal brand, what I'm hoping for is to actually raise the employment branding element, especially on LinkedIn, to then gain more candidates for this campaign that's coming up. The other thing you can do as well is show them some statistics, just like the one that's in this deck about 562 million users and only X amount are using it, that you'd really love to leverage that opportunity to jump onto video more or LinkedIn more, create more articles. And obviously if you work for a company that's maybe a little bit more risk averse, then they might just want to just have a once over on any written content that you're putting out there. But in saying that, like in terms of how I navigated through it, I was just like, I definitely took the view of I'd rather ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. And a lot of the times my hiring managers would be like, that was freaking awesome. That was so cool. We got so much engagement on that job ad, and the quality of candidates were just so much better than just posting a stagnant job ad out there on different job boards, for example. So I got the validation that way, and then backed it with future videos that I was doing for, let's say, other departments and other hiring managers. The other thing as well is that I think you'll find some hiring managers are more open to being on camera with you and sharing a little bit about their area and their industry and their expertise rather than others. So find those advocates. Actually, you will know who they are. Those that are maybe a little bit more like extroverted, that love a good show, that have a good laugh. Those managers are awesome to get started with, because once you've got one manager that's been online with you and that's done a LinkedIn video, other managers will be like, oh, maybe I can do that too. Oh God, if they've done that, then sure, I'll do it. You know, so it's often about just getting that first person on board and on camera with you. I hope that helps, Sophie. A question from Rachel. Hey Ruby, loving the session. I've recently started a careers Instagram page for Tiffany ANZ. That's awesome. Oh, following. Yeah. So Instagram's a tough one, right? Because like I said, sorry, my internet's just a tiny bit unstable, so I'm just going to wait for it to pass. Cool. It's just like turbulence. You know, when you're on a flight, it's like, don't worry guys, it's all good. Instagram's a little bit harder, and it's because the algorithm is very, congested. There's a lot of people on there at the moment that, really want to follow certain type of companies, but there's basically like a ton of new Instagram pages that are being developed every single day. What I would say is that you're able to have, I think the maximum at the moment is 20 hashtags that you can have per comment. So make sure your hashtags are in there in your early days. Like you can choose to have it in the actual comment itself, or you can choose to hashtag in your first comment rather than the actual description, and make sure they're relevant, right? So it's like talent acquisition, Tiffany & Co, like your brand is already so beautiful. So I think people will want to know about Tiffany & Co careers, especially in Australia, but also the content that you're posting in there needs to be really value add, right? So it's less about the consumer brand and about all the beautiful jewelry that you have, but more about the company culture and why someone would want to work at Tiffany. It's like, yes, it can be about leadership growth and development opportunities, but it can also be about the perks that maybe you guys might get, or the global reach that you have, a team that you have overseas, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you're mixing it up with behind the scenes, also a little bit about your consumer brand, and a ton about what's going on with the Australian Tiffany market at the moment. And I think people will start to really be very, very receptive to that. Make sure your images are great quality because it is a photography platform, and just make sure that your the text underneath, the either short form or long form, is really, really on point with the messaging that you're wanting to put out there as well. Such a pleasure, Sophie. Super helpful. I'm so glad. Cool. Any other questions, guys? I don't think, hopefully I haven't missed any. Let me know if I've missed your question, because I am just making sure that I'm not. I'm just scrolling through the chat box. Cool. All right. Any other questions? Okay, Kristen. Any advice on how to do an effective brand with little resources and budget? Oh, my favorite question. Literally, I hardly had a budget when I started to create a brand, because I was working for a relatively small business when I started to actually do all the LinkedIn stuff, right? So I worked for a tech startup company called Cogent, and we had this massive growth plan. Like we wanted to bring on 30 developers in the space of 12 months. Now, if anyone's ever recruited developers, that is such a difficult feat. And also the budget itself was really, really small from an overall to basically manage agency hires, to manage any kind of like marketing help that I needed, any events that I wanted to run, and also budget around social media. So in all honesty, some of the best content that goes out there, especially on LinkedIn specifically, was done because just through like my iPhone. And it was actually how most videos now are filmed through the ATC site. So you'll see on the ATC feed, for example, like BK, who does like all PR and events work, is like just films it on the iPhone. And it's just honestly like it's a great way to make the video feel authentic and that it's not overdone by an employer branding specialist. There's definitely a place for that, which is like your website and your more formal avenues. But if you are posting onto LinkedIn, the more organic your content is, which also pertains to the materials that you're using, including your iPhone, the more engagement it actually gets. So you don't actually need a budget at all to get started. So I hope that helps. Christine says, thanks, Ruby. Awesome content. I'm so glad. Yes, I'm so glad. I'm glad you guys have loved it. But yeah, don't be afraid to ask any more questions. I'm just going to stay on here for a couple more minutes. And if not, we'll jump off. And if there are any other questions that come through, be sure to just, even if you want to email them, I'm sure we'll have an email address for you guys to reach out to us and ask us anything. But I see a few people needing to jump off now because we're almost at the hour. Tom Jones, hi Ruby. What should I be looking out for if I have never shot a video on mobile before? Any tips or strategies? Yes, always look into the camera of your phone. Don't look at yourself on the phone. I think you can really, really tell, right? When you see a video on there and someone's like, so to kind of be like this. So this is me looking at me. I'm looking at myself right now. Also, Tom, like my advice to you is that you look into the barrel of the camera because it feels a lot more personal. You see what I mean? So this whole time I'm literally just staring into the tiny circle on the laptop, just like a little lens. And I've just been looking into the lens for the last hour, which feels a bit strange at the beginning, but once you get used to it, it looks so much better on video. The other tip or advice that I have for you guys is a lot of people out there will be like, you should put subtitles on your videos. It's really, really great to obviously get the engagement of those. It helps a lot of people who are hearing impaired. So there are a couple of apps that you can use that are really, really useful for that. Hasn't particularly been great for the Aussie accent, but you can use, we use a company called rev.com. They turn it around super quickly. They are really accurate. It's $1 a minute. But if that all feels really constrictive for you, my advice is that when you're first starting to do videos is just to get into the habit of posting videos first, right? And then you can start to worry about all the cool things that you can add to it. Like even if you make a commitment to be like, I'm going to post my first 5 or 10 videos over the course of January, February, just get yourself into that habit. Don't give yourselves any other reasons or roadblocks not to do it. So I hope that's helpful. Great question, Tom. Elizabeth says, oh, hang on, wait, no, sorry, going back. Okay, Nick says, thanks, Ruby. Helen, hello, Helen. What do you advise about sharing company content or industry news? If you haven't got time. Hi, guys. Not sure if you can see or hear me. Hi, Ruby, are you there? I'm there now. We had a little internet situation here, but I think we're back online. Yes, you can hear me. Awesome, awesome. Cool. So, Helen, I think I was in the middle of answering your question. And I'm so sorry, you guys, if you had asked me a question after Helen's, it's actually disappeared from my chat. So if you would love to retype that in, you are so welcome to. Apologies for the dropout. So yeah, I was just saying to you, Helen, like in terms of what feels exciting with what your followers want to see from you, company, industry news, absolutely. I think if you're really invested into an industry, I'd want to hear from you what was going on in behind the scenes. But apart from that, just try and weave in a few kind of exciting bits of content that might be engaging ongoing as well. Hope that's helpful. Okay, guys, well, that takes us to the hour. If I did not for any reason answer your question, then feel free to reach out to me. Even if it's on LinkedIn, connect with me there and send me a direct message. I'd be more than happy to answer your question in there. I hope you enjoyed the masterclass. I absolutely love presenting it. And yeah, hopefully I've left you with a couple of insights and things that you can think about enhancing your own personal brand. So thank you so much for joining me, and I shall see you very, very soon, hopefully on LinkedIn. Bye, guys.